What's up, notJust developers? In this tutorial, we're gonna learn about animations in React Native using the library Reanimated 2. We're gonna get started by installing and setting up Reanimated in our project, and then we're gonna cover two types of animations. The first one is gonna be layout animations that will allow us to add pre-built animations for the entering and exiting state of our components. And the second one is gonna be a custom animation where we will try to animate a little text that will move on the screen and we will play with opacity, position, and so on. It's gonna be a fun tutorial, so make sure to download the starter project down below, and also you'll get there the step-by-step guide that I have prepared for you. Now let's get coding. Alright, so the first task is this get started with Reanimated, and we're gonna start by installing Reanimated in our Expo project. You can have a look at the documentations of Reanimated here, and actually I'm gonna open it up because we're gonna look through the documentation from time to time, and then we have an installation guide specifically for Expo. So go ahead and open it up, but the only thing that we have to do is to use npx expo install React Native Reanimated. So let's go in our project and start with that. I'm gonna open a terminal and let's do npx expo install React Native Reanimated. Enter. So after it is installed, we see added 5 packages. That's good. The next step is to change a bit the bubble.config file, and what we need is this plugins React Native Reanimated plugin. So let's copy this. Actually, let's copy the whole babel.config if this is a new project, but if you have like made already changes, it's better just to copy the plugins from here. Let's go in our application. We find in the root directory the babel.config, and after the presets, we can paste the plugins. Now, after that is done, we should restart our development server and we should start it again and also clear the cache. So let's go ahead and stop our development server using Ctrl+C or Command+C, and then we're gonna do npm start, then -- space -- clear. This will send the clear flag to our expo, and it will make sure to clear the cache in order to include the newly added Reanimated plugin. Okay, so let's press I to open it on iOS. If everything is running without any problems, then good job. That's it. We can move on to the next step because our Reanimated is installed and correctly set up with the plugin. Let's go back to the task list and let's go to the next topic. The next topic is about layout animations. Layout animations are a very easy way to animate some of your layout components. And the way it works, we can define some basic animations for when the component is entering the screen and some basic animations when the component is leaving the screen. And this is very helpful in situations like where we don't want some very advanced animations, we just want to make our application look a bit better, and we can just add a couple of these animations like slide in that will come from the top, or with opacity like fade in and fade out. These like simple animations that work really well in the applications. So let's have a look at how we can work with these layout animations. Okay, let's go ahead in our app.js, and what do we have to do is first we have to import the Reanimated library. So we're gonna import like this animated from React Reanimated. Besides the animated library, we also want to import some helper animations, and one of them is the slide in down and also slide in up. These are animations that will help us move like some containers up and down when they appear on the screen. So to work with them, let's go ahead and check like one layout component that we want to animate. For example, the footer, we can animate it to appear from the bottom to the top, and the clock we can animate to appear from the top to the bottom. To do that, we need to change from a simple and normal view to an animated view. So I will just simply say animated.view, and this is a view that already can be animated. Make sure that the closing tag is also animated.view. So besides the properties of a view like style and so on, the animated view also expects a couple of other properties like entering. And the entering will specify what animation to use, what layout animation to use when this component mounts, when this component is added. So in the entering, I can do sliding down. And as you can see, like it's really hard probably to see. But when the application mounts, our footer comes from the bottom to the top. It shows refreshing and probably you don't see it properly. But let's check and let's try to do the same layout animation for our header. So for our header, again, instead of view, we have an animated.view. And for entering, we have slide in up. So it slides in from the top position. Yes, and you saw that it automatically appears from the top to the bottom. There is a lot of these type of animations, and you can animate both the entering and the exiting part. And this is helpful, like for example, when you have like some items that you add to a list, you can animate how they appear in the list, like should they fade in, and also how the items behave when you remove them from the user interface with the exiting. In our case, we don't need any exiting animations. And for more details to check like what other layout animations there are, you can check the documentation. And here probably you can see, read more. Yeah, here are all the animations: fade in right, fade in left, fade in up, down, and so on. There are also some modifiers where you can adjust and fine tune the animations the way you actually want them to look, but I'm pretty happy with how they perform right now. And here in this example, we show you how animation look on the screen, like fading up, fading down. These are the fade in. When there is bounce, it can bounce in, bounce out, and so on. So there are a lot of like these really easy animations that you can use out of the box from Reanimated. I'm gonna leave you here because you can have a look at all of these animations in your application or here in this documentation. So with layout animations, I hope it's clear. Now the next step is to work with some custom animations. But before that, let me go ahead and commit everything. Now, as I said, the next step is to start working at some custom animations, because not always we will be happy with layout animations, and sometimes we need more freedom and adjustments to run these animations. For example, for the swipe up label that we saw in the demo at the beginning, that label is like a custom animations and we should implement it ourselves. So for that, let's go ahead and first create this component that will display a simple swipe up to open label in our application. So for that, in our source components, let's create a new file, swipe up to open .js. Here, let's generate a blank component. And what will we have in the swipe up to open? A simple text. We don't even need the view. We only need the text, and it should be swipe up open. Okay, I already see that I made a mistake to the file name, and the same for the name of a component, but that's not a big issue. Okay, now let's style a bit this text, and I'm gonna style it right away here. But to style it, probably I first need to display it on the screen to be able to see it. So let's go in the app.js, let's import this newly added component, import swipe up to open from components, and we're gonna render it between our two icons, between the flashlight icon and between the iOS camera icon. Here, let's do swipe up to open. Okay, we have it there. That's okay. So let's go to the swipe up to open and style it. So first of all, we need a color white. Then we need to increase a bit the font weight. Font weight 600. What else? We need to make sure that it is aligned at the bottom. So I will use align self flex end to align it at the bottom. Yes, there. It looks very nice, like almost at the end here. And what else? Oh, I can play around with some letter spacing to increase the space between the letters, so it will look a bit better. Swipe up to open. Perfect. Let me go ahead in the app.js and actually add a bit more space to the footer because now it's too close to the bottom. Margin bottom 10. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So swipe up to open. We have a text here. Now our job is to animate this text. So first of all, we have to import animated from React, not React Native, but React Native Reanimated, like this. Now, because our text will be animated, we can change it to an animated.text in order to be able to animate this style. Actually, animated should not be this structure, it should be like this. And as I said, in order to animate the style, directly the style of one component, we will use a hook imported from React Native Reanimated called useAnimatedStyle. Now, in our swipe to open component, let's go ahead and define the animated style equal useAnimatedStyle. This hook expects a function that will return our animated styles. So I'm gonna add some styles in a moment here, but first let's go ahead and send these animated styles to the animated text in the style here. And for that we need to put the existing static styles in an array, and after closing these static styles we can send the animated style like this. Now, here in this object that we are returning in the useAnimatedStyle, we can use all the properties that we are styling our components. For example, we can say color can be red, right? And now our color is red there. But what are we interested in is to move this text to the top. So how we're gonna do that? We're gonna work with the transform property, the transform style, that helps us move and scale items on the screen. So how do we want to transform it? We want to translate our item on the Y, and this will move up and down the item. For example, if I do 50 here, I don't see it, but if I do minus 50, it's all the way up there. So if it's 0, it's where it's supposed to be. If it's minus 10, it will be a bit to the bottom. No, it's actually to the top. And if it's 10, it's to the bottom. So negative values move the item closer to the top, and positive translate values move the item to the bottom. But this animated style right now moves the item right away without animating it properly. In order to say that we want to move towards that direction, not to jump to that direction, we can use some hooks from React Native Reanimated, and one of that is with timing. And this with timing will help us smoothly move the item towards that direction. And we're gonna do probably minus 10 here. So as you saw there, probably you didn't see it very clearly, but our item slowly moved to the top when we put it there. In order for us to be able to see this in action, we can use another hook from Reanimated with repeat that helps us repeat the same animation over and over. So let's wrap this with timing animation inside the with repeat. The first one is the animation that we want to do. The second parameter is the number of repetitions. For example, 3 times or 5 times we want to repeat this. But if we provide -1, that's gonna repeat the animation unlimited number of times. And the last parameter is whether we want to reverse this animation. So it will go to the translate y -10, then it will go back to 0 and then to -10. So if we send through here, it's gonna try to reverse the animation. Okay, with repeat, now our swipe up to open moves from 0 to -15, then it moves back to 0, and this way infinite number of times because we have -1 here in the with repeat. What we want to do is we want to move it up, keep it there for like 1 second, and after that it should disappear. And then again from the bottom up, it should stop there for 1 second and then disappear. So as you can see, we have multiple steps. The first step is to move up 15 pixels, and we have it here, like with timing 15. This will help us move up 15 pixels. Now we want to stop there and wait a couple of seconds to display the text on the top. So as I said, we have multi-step animation, so we can use another hook called with sequence that will help us put one animation after another in a sequence. I will wrap my with timing inside a with sequence because this is the animation, like the steps that we want to repeat. So with timing -15. But in the with sequence at the moment we have only one animation, which is not how with sequence works because we need multiple animations to sequence them to run one after another. So as I said, let's do again like with timing -15, and the first animation will move to -15 and the second one will keep it there like at -15. And the thing is that now we cannot reverse our repeat when you have like a sequence. So I'm gonna remove this true from here, and yes, now our sequence is like this. We move to -15 and then we stay there, and then we should go back to 0. So with timing, go to 0. With timing, go to 0, but then it jumps back here. So we need to slowly go there. So if I do it like that, well, the weird part is that we have here to -15, like go to -15 and then stay to -15. What I can do to improve this a bit is basically what I wanted to do here is to stop at the top for 1 second, and to stop at the top 1 second and then move to the bottom back here. Instead of doing this 2 times, I can use another hook called with delay that will help us put some delay before running another animation. So before going back to 0, we should put a with delay, and the first parameter is the delay. So the delay will be 1.5 seconds and then move to the position 0. So now, okay, now I think it looks good. It's still not very smooth. Wait a second. Oh, now after refreshing, it's actually what I expect it to be. Yeah, let me explain this sequence one more time because I'm pretty sure it's quite confusing. So the first step in our sequence is to move our swipe up to open to the top 15 pixels. This is what this with timing 15 is doing. It slowly, gradually moves the item until it reaches -15 pixels to the top. After that, we say wait, because we have this delay, wait 1 second there on the top, and after that, go back to 0. But again with timing, so don't jump, but smoothly go back to 0. Then, I don't know why I have here with 15. I think I don't need it, but no, in that case it will jump. So let's keep it there. Perfect. So the movement is actually working as we expect. Now we need to play around a bit with the opacity, because this swipe up to open, when it moves down, it should not be visible. So before that, give me 1 second. I want to check the with sequence documentation. Animations. Does it try to run them in reverse order? No, it doesn't have any additional values. So the same way we worked with the transform to animated, the same way we're gonna work with the opacity. So after we finish the transform, let's animate the opacity of our component, because if we set opacity to 0, we're not gonna see the item. But what we want to do with the opacity, let's try to think when should we start fading out. We should start fading out after the delay finished, so before we start moving to position 0, right? So for that reason, we're gonna have a with delay. And how much delay? It's 1.5 seconds. And after that, using with timing, I want to fade out our text, so the opacity will go to 0. Now, if I refresh, I don't see it. If I do, I don't know, 5,000, just to delay it a bit more. What's going on there? 1. All right, so let's do it like this. I need actually 2 steps. 1 step to fade out and 1 step to fade back in. So for that reason, I'm gonna need a with sequence, a sequence of animations, where the first one is going to 0, fading out. after we finished the first step. Then I want to, also with a small delay of 300 milliseconds, the same amount of time taken by this animation, we want to move it back to opacity 1. And it automatically faded away, as you can see. But after once it doesn't repeat. So we need to set that this sequence should repeat infinite number of times. So -1 here, and then we should be good to go. Okay, it automatically fades in and moves to the top, waits there 1.5 seconds, and then it fades out and it appears from the bottom again. Perfect. I think it looks really nice. The complicated part, and the confusing part for beginners, in my opinion, would be all the animation functions with repeat, with sequence, with timing, with delay, and so on. But when you take them separately, one by one, with timing, that means that we are not jumping to that position, but we are slowly moving to that position. Then with delay, it's also quite clear, wait some time and then run the animation. And then with sequence is a way to group multiple steps together. If our animation is a bit more complex and we need multiple steps, like in this case, the first step is to move up, the second step is to stay there, and then to move back down. Just this second with timing in the translate one. This one with delete, a bit unclear. This is helping us move back to position 0, but when we uncomment the opacity, at the point where we're moving down, we calculated it in a way to have the opacity 0. And this is very important, when you're animating two properties, here translate and opacity, if they depend on each other and they should work at the same time, it's really important the values that you're using here. Because for example, if here you decided to do 2000, with delay, then your animation will start slowly to become worse and worse. As you can see here, it's very unpredictable, every time it runs, every time is different. So it's really important to have a right amount of delays and right amount of timing for the animations, so the two of them sync up. And what do I mean here? First of all, we're going here, and this timing animation, they also have a duration. So you can change the duration here. For example, if you want this to take a bit more, you can change the duration here. The default one is 300, by the way. So let me actually add this duration 300. This is default, so it's already there. I'm just adding it here. Let's try to play with this, and I'm gonna try to draw something for you. How to explain it with drawing? Basically, first of all, we have a timeline, right? The animation starts here and it progresses there, and it's infinite. As we said, here we want to translate the position to -15 in the next 300 milliseconds. So in the first 300 milliseconds, we want to translate the position of our text like this. Then we have a delay of 1.5 seconds. The translate will not change anything because we simply delay. So it's gonna be all the way until there. After the delay finished, we go back to 0 in the next 300 milliseconds. So in the next 300 milliseconds, we go back to 0 with our position. Now let's look at the opacity, what should do. So opacity. When the component goes up here, we need opacity 1. Here opacity is 1. And when it moves up, it should be at 1. Then, as long as it stays up, it should always be 1. But when it moves, during this part, the opacity should already be 0, because we don't want to see the label moving down. We should see delay in the same position, and when its opacity is 0, the label should move down. So, in fact, we want to move the opacity starting from here all the way till here, so that whenever we start the movement down, we don't want to see the movement down. And after that, it repeats infinite number of times. Then from down, it goes back up, it waits 1 second, it goes back down. And the same goes for the opacity. With delay 300, that means that we delay 300 on the 0 all the way till here. This is the 300. And at 300, we move it back to 1, the opacity, in the next 300 milliseconds. This is also 300. I'm not sure if I helped you or confused you even more. And yeah, it's again like while it's up, it's gonna be like this, then it's gonna move to 0, then it's gonna wait until here, then again up, and so on. So we're getting there. As I said, now that you have this diagram there, you can play around with the timing and I don't know, wait a bit more while it is behind. For example, let's see how we would design to have quite a longer pause between the animations. This is the pause, right? Between animations. So this pause should be increased from 300 to a bit more. So that means that for our opacity, which is the red, we should increase this segment from 300 to, I don't know, 1000. And the same with this part of our translation animation. The one that goes to 0 should happen not in 300 milliseconds, but should happen in 1 second to have more time between animations. So based on our graph, it's a bit more clear for us how to do these adjustments. And let's see if that's actually the case. So as we said, like we want to increase for the timing, we want to increase the segment that goes back to 0 from 300 to more. So this is the segment that goes down to 0. So let's increase it from 300 to 1 second or even more. Like we can do 1 like this. And when it comes to the opacity, we should increase the segment that delays, that waits, right? So with delay from 300 to 1.5 seconds. Let's see right now if that actually worked. We should have like a more delay. Yes, I think it actually worked. And I can even increase it to 3 seconds to have delay between the animations. 1, 2, 3, and we see it again. 1, 2, 3, and we see it again. I'm interested if it syncs, because if we mess up with these numbers, like it, as I said before, like it will gradually decay and mess up it even bigger. So just wait a couple of iterations and see if you nailed it down and it's the same animation every single time. I hope it is. Looks beautiful. I just can't stop looking at it. Alright, so we managed to get started with Reanimated 2 in React Native, and also we implemented a couple of cool animations. Now let's take this to a new level and check out this tutorial for flat list animations, which are actually my favorite part of this series. And also don't forget to subscribe to the channel for new tutorials like this.